Roll call, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members present, 2 absent. And welcome to the January 23rd all-day session of the department head meetings. Okay, just a couple things. I have a note that we are going to meet on Tuesday, and I believe it's what's next Tuesday? I'm looking. I had it right in front of me and I lost it. Sorry. Next Tuesday is the 28th. We're going to meet at 6 p.m. on the 28th with the Board of Selectmen and the school committee, a joint meeting. It's only about a half hour. It's not a very long meeting to discuss budgets. Don't look at me like that. I would encourage you to attend, but it's, you know, again, we're going to meet so many times, it's going to be very, yes. I believe it's at 6 o'clock.
Where?
We have a executive session with Labor Council scheduled for 6 this Tuesday. I'll let Peter know for the right people.
Yeah, I think that was actually this Tuesday when Emerson can't make it to the next one, so we have to shake it up.
Okay, yep, that's, and I'll let you know if it's been canceled. That's all I've got so far from the joint conversation was that we'll meet Tuesday at 6, at least about a half hour. It's
Where?
Probably here. I haven't got a location yet, but I'm going to assume here because I'm going to follow it up with a selections meeting. And then we'll meet again Wednesday next week because we obviously lost a week in the process. So at this point, because Mr. Sullivan has the schedule in front, we have to try to get through this today and ask all the questions. So in front of you, you have the budget draft. You should have detail for each department. And if you have questions, please ask as we're going through the process. Do you want to wait till the end, or do you want to just ask as they come?
What I would ask is if it's pertinent, let's do it at that moment. If it's more sort of doesn't need to be hit for that exact line, then let's wait for the end. If that makes sense.
Okay. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, we have a brand new draft budget. Are we all excited? And the number, miraculously enough, that's the old one. Don't you have that?
Not yet.
The new number, I believe, is 2.493.
Yeah, and yesterday, if I may, we just received the first version of the cherry sheet. The governor's aid on school is much, well, it is much lower. It's we're probably lower by about 150,000. The general government aid was increased over the estimates, so it's going to be interesting to see where we end up with those. So we'll have to update some of the revenue numbers, but like I said, that didn't come out till yesterday afternoon, and it's not in the cherry sheet format yet. So.
Well, I'm destined to lose my voice somewhere early on in the session, so Marilyn. You don't have it yet. Yeah, he's going to bring it to us shortly. He had it, I thought when I handed the books, they had a budget in it. Apparently, we're going to do this a little different. All right, so let's turn it over. I believe first up is the water sewer enterprise, as we call it here. So you have information for us, or is it in the book already?
It is in the book. I don't think guys changed too much from the last one, but the only two people that'd be missing would be Marilyn and
Jeff.
Jeff, I got her. I know the face, not the name.
Just use mud.
Mud.
Helpful if these were broke down so we don't have to slow through these.
Yeah, the Water Pollution Enterprise Fund would be at the end of the pages. That would be, you look at about pages 30, I believe, 38.
Here they come. They're here now.
I have water pollution control personnel. It's on
39, 38.
I don't know, it's towards the end. That's all I got.
Thank you. See, now you never forget it.
Just a quick question, Derek. The principal on debt, that's paid out of our general. Is that paid out of the sewer enterprise fund? I would think that's.
Yes, it is, because that's the debt for the betterments and such in those projects. So that is actually separate from the general fund debt. So when you see our debt schedule on the general fund, that is separate from the debt schedule for the sewer enterprise fund.
So this is for the betterments. This is not for the actual sewer infrastructure.
Yeah, it probably would have been some of it. Probably would have been for the infrastructure when we rebuilt the plant. When was that?
2005 was completed, so part of the debt is for the actual plant, a lot of engineering costs, and then actually all the other projects we've been doing, the 1 through 12, the comprehensive wastewater management plan. That's all the debt, all encompassed.
2.6.
2.6 is the principal. Yes, 750 is the interest. 150 is the short-term interest. Yes. So it comes out to, your math is better than mine, 3.4, 3 point something
Okay.
is the total debt.
Okay.
Debt and debt service, as I understand it.
Do you have any, you want to talk a little bit before we start asking questions? Just give us a little update on what you've done this year, maybe what, if you've done anything different, or what's in your numbers that is different than it was in the past?
There's really not a whole lot different, other than the fact we're adding capital expenses into the budget. We've got a line now we call capital, what we plan on doing in each year. I think 2015 budget, we've included $200,000 for capital improvements. We know we have much more improvements than that, but $200,000 is realistic. It's to handle the immediates. Clarifiers need to be rehabbed, and we've got some generators that we absolutely need to replace. So that's included in that $200,000. So we're going to take $200,000 in 2015 and make those improvements right off the top. We're also going to take some money and do a comprehensive, or actually what's called capital plan. It's a long-term plan. We're going to have an engineer do it. Actually do it. It's time to do a capital improvement plan officially and do it. And we're doing an evaluation ourselves as to our equipment, its life expectancy, and where we are in that life expectancy to give us some idea of what we're going to need in the future. We're also looking at our infrastructure and what we're going to have to do for infrastructure. As an example, we have some areas like Swiss Beach that has some issues. We need to really address that in the long term. That'll be a 5 or 10-year capital improvement plan, and we'll hire a company to do that. So we're going to put some money in the budget for that also. So those are the only two things that we're looking at differently. At the plan itself, we're really tying into Access Program and doing our own accounting in-house to give us a better idea of where we are on a daily basis. So it's been working pretty good too. So we're just trying to get a handle on things like everybody else. It's been crazy for us, so I think we're doing a better job of understanding. And once we get that understanding, then we can do a better job of reducing. So that's where we are.
Well, just a couple things before we don't have a breakdown of the revenue, but I want to see what that 7 in the budget. You have 7.145, sorry, 145,528. We need a breakdown of where that's coming from.
Well, I was just, we got a toilet we're going to set up in Main Street. Just kidding. Give me an idea.
He's got copies of the rest.
All right.
So we got a good idea with the fire department. I was thinking that the floor was set.
Yeah.
No, not going to work?
Not this year.
This is, I wanted to give it to you. That's actually 2.4, but I want to show you. It's 2.5 and the other is a typo. So I wanted you to make sure that's 2.4, not 2.6. Okay, so you add it up. So this, just so you understand, that's the revenue. And we're trying to get it.
Here we go.
Oh, I don't think this is right. Here we go. Thank you.
I like this term already, certified retained earnings. Not sure I'm a fan of it, but I like the title just the same.
Let me, before, just as far, because you're talking about revenues, we're in the middle of a EDU audit. And if you look at, it says EDUs, we're factoring 214 for this budget. As of this second, we're up to 231 and count, 9,031 and counting. In our audit, we're finding properties that weren't properly charged, some weren't being charged at all, some that were being overcharged, so we're really making all those adjustments, so we're gaining almost daily. So right this very second, we're up to 9,031, and I think I just got this morning, I think I got another update, which I believe was 9,037. So you look at, this is based on 9,114 EDUs. That number's climbing, so we're going to readjust that, and that's going to affect the income. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
So at this point, if I look at no retained earnings, is that where we're going for, Derek? We're not using retained earnings in the revenue?
We don't know where we're going to head with that. It sounds crazy, but we've got the EDU audit and we have the DOR coming in as well.
Okay.
We can use some of those retained earnings to keep on stabilizing it. It's not necessarily recommended, but we're going to have to make that decision with how we move forward. So that's why you'd see the two options.
Okay. So that, we'll come back to that later, correct?
Yeah, we're going to.
All right. So any questions on the sewer enterprise? Anybody? Go for it.
I want you to explain to me, I'm new, so I want you to explain to me what no retained earning means, some retained earning. What's retained earnings? Are these your amount of money that you keep in reserve? Although reserve is a bad term, that I shouldn't have used reserve. Is this your, what is this 9,014?
Those are the 9,014 up here. It's the actual EDUs.
That's each house.
Well, it's each house, businesses. Some businesses have more application than others, depending on the business. Gosh, I don't know if I have an EDU sheet with me, but we have a 1996, the Sewer Commission has established an EDU rate per structure, per user. So if you're a business, if it's one EDU per 10,000 square feet if you're a retail business, restaurants are, I believe it's one EDU per 12 seats in the restaurant, then we decide whether it's paper or if it's actual glassware because of washing. Laundromats have a specific, it's 1 EDU per wash machine. Homes are 1 EDU per single family home. If you have a two-family, the whole nine. So that encompasses that 9,014. It's all the sewer users in the town of Wareham, and those are the total EDUs that we're charging.
Right, so what is no retained earnings, and some retained earnings, it's both the same number. What does that mean? What is no retained earnings?
Retained earnings are what the Department of Revenue certifies at the end of the year as a surplus, whether it's from extra revenues or expenses. It's the equivalent to the town's free cash.
Okay.
So you can put some of that back in to help stabilize the funds. What the
Only
rate
these
users...
funds, though? Only the enterprise?
Only the enterprise fund. What the rate users probably don't understand is over the last 4 years, their funds have been subsidized. The EDU rates should have been higher. However, we have put retained earnings back in there to keep them lower. It's an artificial lowering.
Okay.
So that's what the retained earnings, probably a better usage of those. Although you can use them to lower the rates as we have, it would be for the infrastructure to keep up on it. Somewhere down the line, everybody's EDU or their cost per gallon, if we go to that measure, will be increased because over the last few years we've used monies for infrastructure to keep people's payments down.
So instead of saying a whole bunch of retained earnings, some retained earnings, you might take a little bit out to keep the rate down, but that you won't make a decision on any of that until you come back with the DOR audit that says you should go to meters as opposed to an EDU rate?
No, Tie and Bond is doing that, and we're going to have workshops with the stakeholders as well. So it'll be the sewer commissioners, it will be those people that have sewer businesses that are sewered as well, and try and see what's the most appropriate manner in which we would have to portion out the costs, let's say. Because again, as the Tie and Bond report said, a gallon from a resident isn't necessarily the same as a gallon of industrial waste. It costs more to treat the industrial. And when we're looking at this, we're trying to figure out how we're going to keep this going, because we may not have retained earnings in the future if there's larger issues, if there's bigger breakdowns. So you've always heard me say that I don't think we should balance the general government on the one-time revenues, and that is essentially what retained earnings are. So.
Okay, got it.
Just, I want to mention something before anybody gets going. At town meeting, what I'd like to see as an appendix to our book is the breakdown, because everybody just sees the two numbers on the budget for the water pollution control. What I like to have is have a sheet, this sheet, and the actual budget for the water pollution control as an appendix, so that they can see that, because I don't think we've ever done that at town meeting, and I think it's critical.
With the revenues and such in there. And
everything, because then we have the numbers up there that they're voting on, and they have the backup for what it's going to be, and we'll just put it in as an appendix. Everybody on the committee think that's a good idea to show people? All right.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and we should probably hold a meeting on that or ahead of time, because I think I loved what happened last town meeting was we got the information out ahead of time, we spoke about it, and I think a lot more people were informed. So I think if we can also have a meeting on that, which I'm sure we will with the town meeting, hopefully it will get more of the message out, and persons that are asking the question, maybe their neighbors will be able to answer it if they've seen it. So.
Well, we have to have a public hearing for the finance committee at some point, and when we have that, that's something we'll bring up. I don't want to say we'll bring it up ad nauseum, but we will bring it up several times, because I think that's been one of the things that have been missing in the past, and it's critical that we put it out there, because we're not trying to hide anything, we just want to make sure that they have all the information that they have. Any more questions?
Yeah, but at town meeting floor, you vote on two numbers.
Right.
Budget, the salaries and expenses, right?
Right.
Yeah, you just don't want to leave we wouldn't want to leave the impression that they can sit here and pick off these different numbers and, and change the motions.
Two numbers, revenue and expenditure.
Yeah.
But this will be an appendix, it won't be sitting out there as a part of the budget, and we'll explain that.
Yeah, we're in a way we're ripping off the Band-Aid. Let's say we're making some changes potentially from the EDU. We're also changing the manner in which the let's call them in-kind costs are handled. It used to be a revenue on the general government side, and it's from available funds, and technically it shouldn't be. That should be the enterprise fund is a business, so it should have all the charges and all the revenues as associated to a business. And I think that will help us out and change a lot of the perception of monies flowing back and forth. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
The electricity costs,
Yes,
505.
yes.
Where do we stand on the solar installation, and what potential does that help to reduce that cost?
We're at contract right now. We've entered into an agreement, or we're negotiating with NextEra, which is the largest producer of power in the United States. They've bought some companies. And their solar side, we're at right now trying to come to terms or agreements on building a solar field that'll generate enough electricity to power the plant itself. So we're going to go behind the meter at this point in time because of the uncertainties of the new SREC program. They call it SREC 2. There's some preliminary things, there's some drafts, but we haven't got anything official. So it makes sense at this time to move behind the meter. So we're at right now, I saw the contract, it's at the consultants, they're hashing it out because the company is based out of California, with offices locally, so we're hashing out, then from that point we'll go to the attorneys will do their thing, and then we're hoping to be up and running soon. So we're moving forward, we haven't stopped, it's been a challenge.
When would you hope to be?
To be optimistic, they're telling me this summer. One of the for the Borrega Solar said this spring, but you know how that goes. I'm thinking this summer we should be up and running.
You don't have a contract right now signed?
No, we're in the process of working that contract. When that contract is signed, there's a lot of language in it that has to be worked out, and I'm not a lawyer, so forgive me. So the lawyers are going to do their thing. I'm not getting into it, but we've agreed. We've had a bunch of meetings. We've had, and actually have some videos of those interviews. And so we have the interviews. This company's been selected. The RFQ process is completed, and so now we're at negotiation.
But you're not anticipating any revenue from that this year, or any reduction in electric costs?
I cannot say that for certain, 2015 budget, but I am anticipating up and running by 2015. I have no idea what those numbers are going to be, so they're not, you don't reflect here. So
But if you said you're up and running by this summer,
yeah.
that's the whole fiscal year.
Yes, if it is, then at that time I'll have negotiated numbers. I don't have those right now. So maybe there could be an adjustment made as we get into the fiscal year. But to project the fiscal year, as the budget is the best guess we have of all the facts that we have in front of us, to project those numbers in, I can't do that. So you're not going to see any numbers
That's a potential
reflected
weak
here.
spot in the budget, or
It could
potential
be-
opportunity in the budget.
That's right. It could be an opportunity in the budget that we're not seeing now because I don't have those in front of me. You just know that it's out there.
Yeah, I think it'd be inappropriate at this time to factor in those revenues. It's sort of the, who knows what could happen. They could start digging there and you could find a burial ground. God willing, nothing like that happens. So until the solar field is up and running, we have all the contracts. We wouldn't do any sort of revenue calculations until then into the budget, because again, there's just too much that could go wrong.
Well, it certainly behooves us to put it on a fast track to try to get it done. Because that's the only revenue, only opportunity I see to reduce the operating costs.
It's one of them, absolutely. We're also, the 28th, we're going to Long Island. We'll look at some other ways of handling grease. We take grease in. You can see it's in the budget. We generate revenue. There's an opportunity to look at a system that can even generate more revenue. So we're looking at all kinds of ways to generate revenue, cut costs. It's something that, we're constantly doing. So as we get those numbers and those answers, we'll bring them forward. But right now, there's a lot of things happening out there that we're trying to take advantage of.
Thank you. With regard to the personnel, the listings that you have here, I know it's just a different operation, a different organizational chart than what we looked at last year. Are you fully staffed, and are these positions all fully, they're being funded in the budget? Do we have people that are in all these positions at the moment?
Yes.
Okay. And that's sufficient?
Yes.
For DEP.
I want to, it's working. We're talking to DEP. We're mandated wastewater by DEP rules and regulations to have specific staff for specific grading of a plant. We're a grade 6 facility with what we call BNR, biological nutrient removal. So they give us the guideline. We're technically a person short, but I think we've made that up because we're meeting our hour requirements, and we're doing some things like got SCADA, if you will. We've got our computers checking some pump stations. We've requested them to accept that and allow it. They have. So no sense in hiring somebody else if we're working what we have. So this budget encompasses everybody that's there working now. We have them. And I'm not going to expand it.
Wait, you're using remote technology to monitor these things?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Dick Paulson's jumping up and down. He's so happy about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we're increasing that, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. And then my next question is, I don't see anybody specifically listed in bookkeeping here. I know you've been working hard to get
Yes,
that together.
it's actually one of the full-time positions. To give you an example, that's all she does all day. This is the bookkeeping. It talks about revenue. It talks about our sewer revenue, our expenses up to the minute, and this is what she does full-time. So that's that #1 full-time department assistant. That's all she does is works here on the bookkeeping part of it. It's been a great help.
Again, thank you for a $6 million business. We like to know that somebody is actually doing that.
Absolutely.
So those 4 department assistants that's office?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, that's administration. Yes.
thanks.
No, absolutely.
That was, we did revenue, and I know that Guy is looking to increase revenues any way he can.
Yes.
We did personnel. Now on expenses, we did electricity. I know you spoke to the line on capital additions. What's the 125,000 for equipment and the 20,000 for buildings?
25,000 for equipment is generally speaking, under that category, there's pumps, motors, control circuits, control panels, anything to do with the actual moving of fluid. And so that's the equipment we use on a daily basis. So that's funded for that reason. The 125 equipment is for all those things. There's just, and that's a good question as far as the person in charge, because what we're doing now is every penny we spend goes somewhere. So we're hoping that with this tracking, we can be more certain where our money is going and learn how to be more frugal and do a better budget. But that 120, generally speaking, it's all our pumps, all our motors, all our control panels, anything to do with operation of a pump station and moving the fluid from one spot to the next. That's what that is. And 20,000 per building is exterior things, gutters and things like that constantly need repair.
You putting money into your budget to repair the building?
Yes, we are.
That's
we really
exciting.
are. You can see. I wish I brought some pictures, but you can see if you ride around town, you'll see some pump stations, and you'll see the aesthetics last. I had somebody complain about the building still look a little shabby, but I said to them, we just spent $45,000 inside because we have to move the product. So the pumps are our priorities, the electricals are our priorities, our control, how we control the floats, if you will. Those are the things that are our priority, the air exchange systems, and then we get to the building. So when you see us get to the building itself, it looks better. Know that everything inside has been taken care of first.
Thank you.
The WPCF capital addition, that $200,000, that's a savings account, so to speak, in a way?
It's just money in the budget for specific capital improvement. This year, we're going to use it for, we got 3 clarifiers, it's going to be $50,000 per unit to rehab, we're going to do that. We need some generators. Generators are $50,000, so we're going to take that money and specifically put it towards generators and the clarifiers. So what we're hoping to each year is capital improvement that should be $200,000 a year going forward. And this will become, when the capital improvement plan is completed, the numbers will be hotter. But right now, we're taking $200,000 and we're doing these improvements because we know we need them.
Will there be anything left over afterwards? No.
Actually, it's not enough. I figured this year I needed $800,000, but we're going to stretch that out. But so every penny will be used to do clarifiers and generators this year in 2015. Every penny.
Okay, one more.
Sure.
Outside contractors, tell me what they are.
They're outside contractors. They do a lot of different things. We use pump trucks. Right now I got a pump truck pumping out the Minot Forest Elementary School. Somebody hit the pole. That station has no power, so I'm pumping constantly to bring that to the treatment plant. That's a cost. That's an outside contractor. Anytime I talk to an engineer, that's an outside contractor. If I hire somebody to do something, right now we had a company called Wilkinson's. We've got 3 boilers to heat the facility. One went down. They're there repairing that while they're there and having a look at the other ones. So anything to do that we're not doing is considered outside contractors.
And last question. When we were down there touring the plant, we had that old truck. And I remember you spoke about maybe getting that truck replaced. Is that in here?
No, it's in last year's budget, $100,000 in last year's capital. But right now we're writing the RFP for it because it's going out. So that's where we are with that right now.
So it's in last year's budget?
Yes, it's in this. The present budget we're in, the $100,000 is going to cover that cost.
This is sucker truck that you got?
Yes, it's a vac contract that goes out and suckers out to different things. So that's in our budget, and we're right now at RFP with it because we're going to buy a used one. So right now we're in RFP with it, and we're going to get out there and get all the bids and take the best deal for the town. Yes.
That just brought up a quick point, Derek. I have a question. So when somebody hits a pole like that, and it causes us additional cost, do we get charged to collect under their insurance?
We will alert Maliyyə, and they'll subrogate against the other
Okay.
insurance company.
Good. And now for the big question. And I'm going to preface this with a little bit of history for those who haven't ever heard the term administrative fee. I'm going to wait for lightning to strike me down. Okay. Long time ago, there were fees coming out of this account. There, as Guy and Derek have mentioned, this is an enterprise fund. It has to be fully self-sufficient. All the revenues that come in have to pay for all the expenses. That's how it goes. But that being said, it's still part of the town, and it relies on certain aspects of the town. When there are problems, the police may be involved, the Board of Health may be involved, but certainly the town administrator spends plenty of time on it, and we do billing through the town. So there are other charges that fall over onto the town side. Those were at one point called administrative fees. They were also lumped in with all of the health insurance costs and everything else, and they just did this lump sum on the budget that was called administrative fees, and it was about $1 million. And it was deemed to be some immoral charge because it shouldn't be double charging the taxpayers. So we did a good job of breaking things out so that there are actual real fees, which are the direct costs, am I using the right term, for the health insurance.
Health
and
insurance, retirement,
those
FICA,
benefits.
Workers' comp,
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah, which flow through the town system. So, and this is what Derek's talking about, billing between the two entities. Billing, all right, transfer of funds, what's your accounting term?
I don't know, we'll have to.
We'll get into that afterwards, but that being the background, I see a line here now that says administrative expense. Can you please address that and tell me what the breakdown of that $585,000 is?
Yeah, if you look at, that's exactly what we used to have on the revenue of the town side. And it's everything you've listed on there. But one of the things we need to look at is if the enterprise fund is truly a business, right now they charge roughly, let's call it town buildings and school buildings, approximately $120,000 worth of EDUs. This is a business. The town does not tax them and does not do a pilot program, which are perfectly legal. So it is a subsidized fund of the general government because we are not taxing on there. Also, assessing does work, treasurer collector's office does work, legal does work, also labor does work, myself, and it used to be that you accounted for those. And we're not. And it's very difficult. Guy will be the first one to tell you that he's going to want explanations for everything. But if it's truly a business, you can't have the general fund doing work for the enterprise fund and absorbing those costs. And that's where we need to figure it out. At one time it was close to $1 million. I don't think we'll reach that by any stretch, but there needs to be some sort of really working with it as an enterprise fund. And that's what the Department of Revenue is also coming in to do. They're not necessarily doing an audit of it. They're not going to tell us every single cent of the retained earnings, where it came from or anything like that. They're going to tell us best practices and how it should function. One thing, and I've looked it up from other towns, the Department of Revenue will tell you, is that it's impractical to account for every minute out of an office that is addressed to the enterprise fund. You could theoretically do it, but it's not practical. So we're going to have to make, let's say, informed decisions as to the time of usage. But we will not track every single minute and every single hour. It's just, it doesn't work.
585 right now?
No, the 585 is the benefits portion, also the workers' comp, also the insurance as well. There's none of the legal fees in there. There's none of the time of any of the different departments. Yeah, I would say you'd probably, if you were to do it in the as the true enterprise fund, which was you would see an increase in that. And Guy and I will arm wrestle over that.
Well, here's something. Building the sewer enterprise budget really has to be built expenses first, because it doesn't matter to us if it's EDUs or flow rates or whatever it is. All that is going to be based on what it costs to operate it, basically. So, I know that the EDUs, in my opinion, have been understated for a number of years, and now they're going up according to this, one way or the other. But what I'm going to say, and this bothers me. Last year it may be how we term things. I don't mind a reserve, and I don't mind a reserve for capital additions, but I don't like the term capital additions because last year we got into a little bit of an issue with this truck, whether it had to come back before town meeting, whether it shouldn't. And I think to be on the safe side, we need to address that question this year. And maybe these are reserves for capital, but they're not specific to any item. And if we're going to get capital, we'll have to come back to town meeting to get the money from the reserve to fund that capital item. So that way we're not double dipping, but at the same time, we're using the reserve logic as opposed to just saying for capital, and then it's an expense item and nobody you know, we get a truck and, you know what I mean? There's an openness to this. This 200,000 may not cover what you're talking about. So really what it is a reserve fund. You're saving money to get to a point where you can pay for something.
I think in the long term, and again, a CIP, a capital improvement plan, will address that, because you'll have millions. As an example, if it's going to take us $12 million to rehab an area, then we have to figure out how to pay for that. So we'll probably do some bonding or whatever, and that'll all be in the capital improvement plan.
Right.
But I know that I have some, and to me, as I explained to me, capital expenses were things that were greater than $25,000, because capital expenses have to go out to bid. So I know that I have to do my clarifiers, it's $50,000 a piece. I've got to put that out to bid. So that's why I come out of capital. Anything short of that comes out of the budget. So if it's going to be something for $10,000, I budget it. If it's going to be something greater than 25, then I put it in the capital additions so I can put it out to bid. So that's how I'm approaching it. So
I understand
don't know if
that,
that's proper or not proper.
but that's where we failed
Yeah.
last year. That's where the problem came in, is
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. By our own bylaws, we have a separate definition of capital as well, which requires certain items to be brought before town meeting. So what we'd have to do is go through every single item that we're listing on there and determine whether it is an actual capital item. Also, probably most likely, for clarification, the line name probably shouldn't say capital on there.
That's right. I
So,
think it needs to be a reserve or something
Yeah.
along that line.
Because I do have a reserve line, I'm sorry, Derek, a reserve line, I have that, but that's I reserve that for emergency, so maybe we can put the whole thing in reserve. Yeah, so, okay, thank you, I didn't,
yeah, because if he has a reserve, then also as part of that, he would go before the sewer commissioners to request a transfer out of that for a purchase. So I think it keeps with the openness of it, so people have to see what's being expended, but also it doesn't hamstring the operations of the department.
Any more questions on sewer before we move on?
Can I just follow up on one? So, as far as the transfer of funds, you know, for the allocation of the administrative expenses, what about the sewerage expenses on the town buildings?
We are billed just
Okay.
like a resident,
Just like
and we
everyone
pay the
else.
bill,
Okay.
so.
How we operate back to them is governed by this, and we have to be careful, because we can't really invoice them. I don't believe that's the way we do it according to the enterprise accounting.
Yeah, there's some real iffy things. There's sometimes municipal maintenance, some of our mechanics have to work on the equipment for water pollution control, and it just makes sense. Even though they're a separate business, we do understand we're working for the town of Wareham and the residents and those that are, using the sewer as well. So that's where things can get, a little. I'm going to say a goofy word or something, so I'll say a little confusing.
Let's move on so we can, thank you very much.
thank you, I appreciate it.
You want to start?
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Walsh, interim police chief. And this is Administrative Assistant Cassandra Cassidy. You have the budget figures before you, I guess, in the expenses. I want to start out by saying, with the police department, we have a theme that since my tenure started a very short time ago as interim. I started November 29th as interim. But the theme is going to be back to basics. The police department will go back to basics on the budget. And what I mean by that, I'll put some things on the table, and I don't want to put anybody under the bus, but I will put things on the table. We realize at the police department that big spending is over. We have the reputation of being spenders. That's ended. We operate within the means. We operate on a daily basis, and it's just the basic daily basis. And we're even having a hard time with that. We rely on grants. A lot of grants are out there. We actively, daily seek grants, and we are being awarded grants. We have to maintain operational objectives to receive the grants. So it's a two-way street there, but we are relying on and receiving grants. We've ended things like jet skis. Jet skis, they were transported back to Boston. Boston Motorsports has the jet skis. They're gone.
Thank you.
Things like that are gone, okay? ATVs, we had ATVs on weekends at various places, gone. The ATV is still here, but the overtime expenditures are cut on that. We're not putting them out every weekend in different areas. The massive warrant sweeps have to be on hold for now. We realize that. The traffic unit, no longer. We can't do that, and the two cruisers that we have assigned to a traffic unit have to be put back into the fleet because of the situation we have with the fleet. The motorcycles is another issue. That's on hold for now. The substation in Onset, we're going to not man that with overtime. We're going to man that with seasonal officers and put a patrolman in charge of it, I hope. Things like that, while it doesn't add up to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, it does add up and contribute to the fact that what I'm telling you is it's back to basics.
And I'm going to interrupt here just to say, all of those items that you just mentioned are perfectly appropriate tools for law enforcement. A lot of them well used in a town that has waterfront and a lot of brush. I think they were great ideas. They just weren't appropriate to be funded at the time that we were trying to do them. It's really hard to say we're struggling, we have to make cuts, and then that's what the public perception is. So I really myself would hope that someday we get to see those things come back, fully funded and fully operational, because they're valid tools. But as you said, back to basics now, so thank you.
And if I can real quick, when the budget was finally passed, I think it was June, a member of the Finance Committee had come up to me afterwards and he said, can we do it on this budget for the police department? And my answer was no. That is not a real budget. I think it was shocking to them, and they thought that I had lost hope. I haven't lost hope. But the reality is, what we are budgeting this department doesn't work. I know we'll look at the overtime and such. We don't have enough staff, so we're paying with overtime. We can't afford to send people to the academy, which is one of the things that we're requesting to do starting this year. So at some point, we have to get out of the downward spiral and realize, as long as we're doing the best we can with the monies, we have to do something for the safety of this town. And you'll notice if you look at your historical, there was a request, an FY 2015 request. You'll also notice that my admin for the 2015, and it is higher than the FY 14 numbers. And I am standing behind that because that's what we need from this department to not just continue running, but to run. We're going to have at some point some of the salary increases. We've had people retire and we can't afford to hire new people. So, I would ask that we really take a look at this, because I want the Finance Committee to understand this budget and see it as I do. So I'll turn it back over to Chief Walsh, and I appreciate your indulgence to say that.
On that same line, I want to say that the cuts that we've made, or the things that we're not doing anymore, doesn't make us, believe me, doesn't make us a better and stronger police force, and that's the downside of that. It does weaken us, but we will never be weakened to the point that Wareham, the citizens of Wareham, suffer. And so, while I realize that we have to go down on things, I don't want to say that we've cut that because it's so extra that we positively don't need it and it was never useful to begin with. We realize that it's, like I said, back to basics. With that in mind, I don't like the fact that all non-mandatory training has been, we stopped that, all non-mandatory training. Any extra training has been stopped until at least July 1st. We still have mandatory training that we have to do. We have to do firearms qualification in the spring. We have to have certain EMD training has to be done. Certain dispatcher training has to be done. We will stick to the mandatory, and we will work from July 1st on and see what we have. But that's what I mean. It doesn't strengthen us, but we'll get by for now. You know, the overtime costs, as Mr. Sullivan said, the overtime costs are really damaging to us. But we're down on manpower. We're down 6 people right now, with a 7th probably on the way. He's going to be hired by the FBI. So we're down with retirements. I had 2 sergeants retire. That pulls, when sergeants retire, I have to fill the sergeant spots. It pulls up from the, makes empty slots on the patrol side, which is the last place we want to make any cuts, is the patrol side, because we still provide the service to the public. We're down, and please don't take this as a woe is me speech. I'm just giving you what's going on. The detectives, we're down to 2 detectives right now and an investigator. We should be at least at 4, probably 6, with the problems that we have in Wareham, the investigations. And I have to give kudos to the guys that are down there, that are working their butts off every day, because crimes are being solved, drug raids are being done. We're networking with other departments and getting things done. As you see in the papers, there's always something being done. And with that, the workload is still there. In 2013, we responded to there were 52,504 calls for service received at the police station. That's 1,000 calls a week, ranging from a barking dog, cat in the tree, to a murder. So that takes into all the calls that were received. There's over 3,000 EMS calls that we responded to. We're the first responding units to an EMS call. 537 accidents. 1,528 arrests made by the Wareham Police Department. We're known as, unfortunately, Brockton with trees. Plymouth is Brockton by the sea. We're Brockton with trees. We're the busiest town south of Brockton, and we still put up the numbers, even though our internal numbers are down. We put up the numbers, and it's funny, but criminals don't care about our budget too much. So, 2,570 incident reports. That's just incident reports. You know, my car was damaged. My mailbox was damaged. To reports that might not be solved, but the officer has to take a report. On top of all this, we have events that we have to make sure that there's public safety at events. And this year, I see Claire Smith is in attendance. This will be, without a doubt, and she can attest to this, is that this will be Wareham's historically largest event year.
And you put that in your budget, right, Claire? You're going to cover all those costs for the overtime for the police.
We are certainly doing our very best.
This will be the most events Wareham has had, the biggest events and probably the best events. But it will be a busy time for us, and therefore we positively need every seasonal officer that we can get to help out with that. So. With that, we had over 60 events last year, so we're adding events on top of that. And like I said, I'll end with, we realize, as bad as our budget numbers are, especially with the police department, the public still says, okay, the budget's tough, yeah, whatever. I need you to respond to my house because this is happening, and I need you to respond to these incidents, which we do, and we will, and we do. So, with that, also with the overtime, the way to cut down the overtime, I believe, is we need to hire more people to cut down the overtime costs. We're down, like I said, we're down almost 7 people right now. It's probably going to get worse. We actually have this 800 state troopers being hired. We believe we have 2 or 3 officers that are on that list. We could lose more. We're looking at losing more people. So that's going to cost more overtime. I believe that we need to hire more full-time officers to try to cut down the overtime. Court overtime is what it is. With 1,500 arrests, you're going to be going to court a lot. We've been working with the court. I've met with people at the court several times now. In the last few months, we're trying to cut down officers going to court. Do you really need this witness? Do you really need that witness? So you know, we have a certain amount of people summons to court on a minor offense. Can we cut out 2 of those 3 people? So we're trying everything we can on that end. But court is a major factor. And we cut down court costs, that means we cut down arrests. In Wareham, that's not a good thing to do. And it's not it's actually not even possible. So I think that's it right now. We have overtime broken down into the different areas. The expenses are all broken down. Some of them, I hate to use the term, but it is what it is on some of them. You know, fuel cost is high, but that's what it is. And other ones, we've gone line by line. We sat down with Mr. Sullivan, went line by line, and made cuts here and there, and argued for other things. But I'm gonna tell you, more cuts came than increases. I can tell you that. That's it for now. If you want to add anything.
Thanks. Jeff had a question.
Yeah, if I'm new, so if I can just get an idea. You're running 3 shifts of how many per shift?
There are 6, the minimum staffing is 6 people. That'd be 5 officers, there's 4 sectors, a station officer, and 1 sergeant. That's the minimum on a shift.
Okay. And then during the day, you would have the detective sergeant probably on hand and the lieutenants, or do they take shifts?
No, they're assigned to that. We only have, actually, we're down lieutenant. We have 1 lieutenant right now. So we have a detective sergeant, a detective, splits between nights and days, and then we have, the shift. The shift sergeant runs the shift.
Okay, so the lieutenant counts in minimum manning?
No.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, he doesn't. No.
How about the sergeant counts?
Sergeant counts.
Okay. And do you run an impact shift?
No, we don't. But we'd like to, but we don't.
Okay, and so...
What is an impact shift?
Impact shift is what you know how the typical is, say, 8 to 5 or 8 to 4?
Maybe a 6 to 2 shift.
Yeah,
Or 6
something.
p.m. Your busiest time.
Busiest time, okay.
Yeah, so, and then you have a group there during the change of shifts so that there's always people out.
Yeah, we actually wouldn't have the manpower right now to do that. If we had the manpower, I'd love to negotiate that with a contract, but right now, we don't have the manpower to do that and maintain the other shifts.
Right. Okay. And what about lateral transfers? It's instead of the academy?
We took 2 lateral transfers, I believe, a year and a half ago from Falmouth. That is something we'd look at.
We haven't, you have to understand as well, the police contract is going on to its 3rd year in arrears. So we're not exactly attractive without that, and we've had more requests for lateral transfers out than in.
Okay. And how about this, now, how does seasonals play in with the contract?
With the contract, they're not part of the bargaining contract. Certain aspects of their duties are,
Right.
but they're not covered by the.
I mean, you use a
contract.
seasonal in January, you're going to be in trouble, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, so there's some gray area on.
Right.
You could bring them in April or bring them in May or.
We haven't been able, I'm sorry to interrupt, we've actually been holding off till July 1 of every year. We don't even have them, you'd want them in April, May to get them running, but because of the budgets, we've not been able to do that. So you effectively have seasonal starting on the first day of July, of probably the busiest weekend of the summer.
Yeah.
I looked at it, and you'll notice I cut the request down about approximately 33,000 to 90,000. If it weren't simple economics, we should have those additional 34,000 on there to have them hired starting in May, maybe even late April, to get ready for all the activities that we're going to have forward. But we simply can't. Yeah.
Okay, I was just trying to get an idea of how, of the department. Thanks.
They're excellent.
Bonnie?
I was just hoping you could run through these just numbers of personnel here. I'm counting up. Are these listed personnel what you really need, what we want to hire at this point? I'm listing, you're saying detectives, I've got 3 here, lieutenants 2, sergeant 6, and 33 patrolmen. Is that what we're looking for? That's what we have, but not what we're looking for.
Well, the lieutenant's position, we only have 1
Okay.
has been put as interest, so, but we would like to fill that position. And we currently only have a detective sergeant and a detective. So, and we're looking to put a third detective in there. We have an officer now who works with the DEA task force, and he's assigned to the detective unit as an investigator, but we would like to bring him up to detective. That would cut out some of his overtime, because now he gets paid for overtime, and we do get reimbursed for a lot of that he does with the DEA, but if he gets called out in the middle of the night kind of thing, we have to pay him for overtime, but if he was a detective, we wouldn't have to pay him for overtime.
And that's one of those moves that would help but hurt.
Yes.
So in other words, it would help us to put another detective on, but we lose that association with the DEA. We lose that chance for forfeiture money, seizure money from the federal government. We lose that, and we lose that networking. But we have to think of Wareham first, and we have to think of what's going on in the budget. And so to bring him back would be the prudent thing. Bring him back, put him on the regular line as a detective, but it would add to the salary a little bit.
So these numbers are actually positions that we want to fill, but not necessarily filled at this point?
Yeah, some of them on there. We also have one officer that's out on 111F that will not be coming back.
I wondered what that 111F was.
Yeah, 111F is, when you look at it, it's essentially, think of it as the police workers' compensation.
Okay.
We're changing the manner in which we handle it. It's, in order to be placed on 111F now, they must be certified by Maliyyə and medical doctors that it is the job related and such before we will place them on 111F. It's going to save some issues because once somebody's placed on 111F, it is near impossible to have them removed from that. So,
Okay.
the 10,000 is we always have to cover a certain portion of it before the insurance will kick in. So that's what we've budgeted for part of that.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to go back to that last subject that you were talking about with the investigator and the DEA, because I know you were saying it makes more sense for the department and for the budget, but you're losing out on connections. Last year, we had a lot of talk, Derek, about the department heads finding revenues. I mean, it may not make more sense budgetarily if we're getting revenue in, and I don't know how that's accounted for money that comes in that way.
I coughed and missed it.
So he had said that we get something, we get some benefit from cooperating with DEA.
You're right.
The forfeiture money
Forfeiture.
we get, and that goes into a federal equity sharing account, and we're restricted on how we can spend that money, but,
So that doesn't come into, budget questions. It doesn't come into the town budget, it comes into the police department, and you have some discretionary funds there too.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
And you're restricted on how you can spend that, so it's not like you can spend that on salaries, obviously.
And you know something, that would be one of those things that would probably be the first thing we'd re-implement.
Okay.
But at this time and in this situation, we realize that we need the manpower with us.
We don't like to always be seen as cut, because there are some cuts
know.
that don't make sense.
Right.
If there are cuts that you're cutting because you have to, but you're losing this access or service or funding, really, in this case, it becomes a concern,
Right.
because then you lose the ability to go back and get it. So just trying to figure out how that works. Is that a significant number? Do we know what that is? or-
It varies.
So if we make a big bust and we don't get the money directly, it goes into the
We
pool.
get a certain percentage of that.
Okay.
It depends on how much our town was involved, so it's always different. But, sometimes we could get $4,000 or $5,000 in a
Okay,
whack.
so-
And if he's out there more often, that's more money that we get in, so.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Bonnie?
I'm just going to bring up the elephant in the room over here. This,
Good, I'm glad someone else will do that, not just me.
I thought I already did, but.
the holiday buyback and the sick leave buyback, I mean, they're big numbers, and they've been an issue for a long time. I I mean, is some of your overtime issues in staffing causing them to buy back some of their sick leave and their holiday pay more?
Actually, what I've seen is the sick leave buyback, changing it down was the worst thing we could have done.
Really?
Yes. They went from, if you check, it was approximately $35,000 worth of sick time when it was the 100%, I believe, or around the 75,
100%.
and that cost us about 75 to 80,000. Now they're using anywhere between 160 to 180,000 dollars worth of sick time. Now multiply that by 1.5 times, and you have what it's actually cost us. It was a bad move.
Okie dokie then, thank you.
So when you do the contracts next time, you'll know this, right?
Well, I'm hoping that I probably just played my hand right there, but yeah. If I looked at it from a budgetary wise, I would say it's a bad move. Now we've implemented that in with all the contracts, so we might be stuck on that because when we implemented it, it was based off what everybody else had done. But when we're in the type of situation we have with low staffing, it is better for us to have them than them taking their sick time.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, and I think that's an important point for us and for the public to understand, because that becomes an issue. I know it's an issue at my workplace. It's a sick time policy, use it or lose it. Well, use it or lose it, there's a certain amount of people that are going to use it. Don't use it and get paid for it, some portion of it, is what Derek is saying, is actually making smart budgetary sense. It kind of goes against the wrong way, but we're not asking them to just give the town their sick time. We're buying it from them. So I was sitting on those finance committees where we argued that it was a terrible number to look at, but when you're comparing it to what the reality is, I guess we'll live with it. So,
Well, then too, is there were some shocking numbers when, you know, an employee left and bought what they had accrued.
yeah.
Was like, wow, okay, that was fine if they were never going to leave or, you know, whatever, but when they left, it was like, wow,
But
really?
then I guess the contrasting number is what they saved us in overtime. So that's how you're going to look at it. So, anybody else? Go ahead, Tom.
I'd like to ask a series of questions about 911. If I have a call on 911 on a fire, where does that call go to?
The Wareham Police Department, and we transfer it to the fire department.
And EMS
911 comes to us.
and a robbery,
911 comes to us, yeah?
harbor. So you take all the 911 calls
Everything.
in where?
Even the 911 calls that ask if a school is open tomorrow. We take every 911 call.
Can we charge those? That's just,
And is there a similar group that fire departments have?
What do you mean a similar group?
I mean, that take emergency calls?
No, when we receive a 911 call,
You take it for the whole town?
right,
regardless of what
and
the
we
emergency
transfer
is.
it, to, you know, stay on the line, I'll hook you with the fire department right now. Boom. You don't have to call again. You know, you get hooked right to the fire department.
Okay. Grants. It looked like in fiscal year 13, you got about $400,000 worth of grants. Is that a realistic number?
That's correct. And Lieutenant Walsek is here. He
What did
applies for the grants. He might be able to answer any specific
Explain a
grant
grant to
questions.
me.
It depends on what we examine any possible error we can. Thank you. And the grant might be anything for emergency management matters. Could be for
911.
911, emergency medical dispatching. And I might add on the 911, we not only take every single solitary emergency call for the town of Wareham, we also take down every other town's drop-down calls that they don't catch. So we'll get calls from Middleborough, any town, if their 911 goes down, we're grabbing that call.
And I can say that during the last hurricane, Middleborough's 911 went down. We took all of Wareham's calls plus Middleborough's calls, dispatches.
Literally answering hundreds and hundreds of calls, 911.
The grants also cover click at a ticket, patrols, the underage drinking grants,
OUI.
the OUI patrols that you see advertised and you see guys out doing. you know, a lot of the people in the public think that, oh boy, they have enough money to send guys out looking for people not wearing the seatbelts, but they need this. That's grant patrols. We're not putting out anything extra unless it's a grant patrol.
And there's a pretty good latitude as to where that money goes? Did they ever come back in and check to make sure it was spent specifically for what the grant was?
Yes, we have been audited, yes, yeah.
Well, there's tight control.
There's very tight control of
Oh,
the
yeah.
state because it's run through the Executive Office of Public Safety. And they demand monthly reporting, which Cassandra takes care of.
And the grants come from private?
No, a lot of them, most of the ones we've been getting have been coming from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And,
Insurance companies?
no. In fact, Kevin and I, Chief and I talked last night, and we have an intern from Mass Maritime this time, and we're currently looking for every available grant dollar we can. That's one of his assignments, through private companies.
Maya has grants, you know, that's insurance, our insurance carrier, they have grants, but most of the grants come from EOPS, the
Correct.
the state.
And are they running as much in 14 as they were in 13?
They pretty much do. They're pretty consistent, yeah.
And we attend every possible grant meeting we can with the Commonwealth, so the Wareham Police Department's always out there on the forefront trying to grab those dollars.
I mean, we're actively seeking a grant right now to hold a Citizens Police Academy. That's how much we rely on grants. We know that we can't afford it budget-wise, but we'd love to do it. The public loves it. We seek a grant for it, and we're actively seeking one now.
That's for me.
Just one last, was doing out some numbers here. It looks like you almost have, on any given day, you've got to cover vacations, almost 3 people per day are on,
Separate vacation days, if they call in and request a vacation day,
right,
and then if it can be filled by overtime, it's filled.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know the vacation rates, but just assuming, and then, so your minimum manning is already knocked with vacation.
Usually on a daily basis.
And I got to tell you, I'm coming from another town. I listen to the scanner, and I'm just amazed at the number of calls, and I don't know what, I don't know if it's the highways or what.
You've listened to this town?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that amazement will wear off. You'll get used to it.
Yeah, it's just a huge number population-wise.
Right.
For 5 minutes.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
And like I said, I want to end with that, staying on that, is I want to compliment the guys on the police force, because with all the hardships that we have, they're working with us on the budget, and we still put out, we still produce, we still, we still are enforcing the law as best we can with what we have, and they're doing a phenomenal job, so.
I have one question. So with this budget, what you've decided is if, for 2015, you'll rehire what you have to, and that's the figure that's the minimum that you can.
Right.
Will be doing.
We'd love to do that as a minimum.
Hire how many more?
20? No, refer,
Right there.
yeah. I would like to bring it up to full staff, and even up to 10 more. To reduce costs, to bring our detective division to what it's supposed to be, and to what this town deserves, and to provide services to what this town does deserve. Like I said, I started out with the cuts that we made. Those should be things that we're doing on a daily basis. They weren't, with the exception of 1 or 2, weren't frivolous. We'd like to have enough people to do that and to provide the best service we can.
And the overtime and the vacation won't really change with the new, what you've got in 2015. But with the full staff of 10, do you think that will cut down on overtime and it won't impact the vacations they take?
Well,
They can really take vacation when they want, it's up to them.
it would drastically cut down on the overtime, I believe, if we had a full complemented staff plus the people, without a doubt.
And you actually could save on vacation, because if you're just manning with the minimum staff and you don't have anybody else on there, anybody that's sick or on vacation is now being covered by overtime. If you have the ability to put an extra person on that, let's say, or keep that moving forward, now you're cutting down on the overtime, and you're doing things such as directed patrols or getting more work done out of there. The tough decision we have, and I feel terrible because I'm holding up the chief on this, is the academy is this, March?
Yes.
March 3rd.
And
March
we're 3
31st.
spots available for us. And I haven't approved it yet because I don't know if we can afford it at the end of the day. And it's penny wise and pound foolish, but we cannot go over budget this year. So and this is what I'm trying to say is we are in a deep spot with this. So I know at the end of the day, I'm searching for other funds besides the $500,000 that's had to been cut to try and bring 3 more officers onto the patrol. It'll take a while before they're in effect, maybe October, I think. And
If they went in the academy now, they'd be street ready October 1st.
and that can cut down on some of the overtime. But it's almost like if you don't have the funds to repair your roof, the water leaking through, it's damaging the floor now, and geez, you should have just repaired your roof. I don't have the money. So this is where we're at.
And every time he says it, I cringe, because we have the 3 spots in the academy that they're tough to get. The spots are tough to get. You have to get them well in advance. There has to be psychologicals, there has to be this, everything has to be done to put somebody in. And we have them waiting. We have the spots. We're all set for them, and there could be 3 empty seats for the Wareham people.
You have the candidates then?
Yes.
Luckily, there's no psychological test for my position.
Bonnie, hold on just a minute. Larry?
The grants?
Grants for that?
Yeah.
Not really. There used to be COP grants out there, but those are tricky grants. You end up paying in the long run on those. And when the grant is over, now you eat those. They look good in the beginning. They look really great. But then all of a sudden, when you get that final bill, hey, listen, grant's leaving, they're yours. So I don't think that's the financially prudent thing to do right now with that type of grant.
Tom, hold on a minute. Bonnie had a comment.
I just wanted to follow along with Derek's plan, make sure I'm understanding what's going on here. When you changed the request to the administration here, you said, so you're basing this on if you can get, you're increasing the regular salary line item, getting rid of part-time, reducing seasonal, and reducing overtime. That is your game plan, is to have more full-time officers to make it work. Am I correct?
Yeah, the game plan is to bring them on board and have
Okay.
more full-time officers, which tells you why it's driving me crazy, what our budget is like this year, and we don't have extra funds to put towards putting these folks into the academy. So,
I just want to make sure I understood those numbers, that's what it was interpreting to me.
yeah, if you look at it, you'll see what the salary is versus the FY14. Then the seasonal, again, like I said, I've cut down on the seasonal. The overtime, I've brought it up versus the FY14, but still less than what's probably needed. I mean, if we were to go forward, you'd probably look at about another $300,000 to $400,000 easily into this budget right here. But part of that's for if you had a whole bunch of new employees or lateral transfers you could go through. One of the other items I think we're all missing is the police cruisers. Now if you've seen, I've lowered it to $100,000, so that's potentially a lease for the units for 3 years. But just remember, at the end of the 3rd year, those units are shot. They are effectively useless. This would potentially, we've worked the numbers and such, provide us with 5 units. With the other 3 that we've had ordered and are being put together, that would be 8 of the newer units. But again, we're not doing what we're supposed to. I think trying to remember what capital planning had put together. They had an annual number for the cruiser replacement. I thought it was relatively, yeah. It was in the double digits, though, I thought. So that. Right. So that's one of the things, and we know we have to get more on there. And I would have to go to we'd have to have a separate article to actually purchase them through the lease, but we're building it into the budget so people see what the true cost is of this department. I think the 440 was representative of what it would be to replace the ones that need replacing. So, I'm going to provide you, and Cassandra had already given it to me, and you don't have in your package, will be the updated mileage of the cruisers. Our main fleet, I think, is approximately between 120 to 140,000 miles for the cars that are on the road every day. Here we go. Thank you. Yeah, what do we have? We got the 126, 132, 122, 126. I've got 151, 166. The 2 traffic units that they've brought into the regular patrol, they're helping out, 31,000, 32,000. And we have one other Charger with 42,000 miles on it, and that's because we were able to, through the insurance company, get a brand new one that was wrecked. So.
Tom?
The overtime is the total money spent for the person while he was overtime. It's the real overtime cost is the premium, which is 50%. So a third of this number is the premium cost that you're paying. Is that correct?
I think if you're thinking about it, you have the person, let's say they're on vacation or going out sick. You're paying 100% of them. Now you're bringing in somebody else at the 1.5. So I don't want people to think it's a 0.5.
But they've earned the vacation. I mean, you're going to pay that anyway.
Right.
But
you're filling their shift now because you're already paying that person to be out. If you look at here, we don't break down their shifts, but we don't break down the vacation and such out because that's all part of their regular salary. But if their position is being filled, that position is being filled on overtime.
I think what's happening here is a difference between semantics. I understand what he's saying, which is the cost of the overtime from an accounting standpoint is the premium, because all regular hour dollars go into the regular hours. But what he's trying to say is he's actually talking about theoretically what they're doing. So that number, I guess what I'm asking then is in the 200 or whatever it is, 2015, 473,592 says overtime. Is that an entire person replacing someone in overtime? Is that the amount for that person?
It would be court added into that. It would be
Okay.
other things added into that.
Right, but there is some of that is reimbursed if it's done for, is that part of if they're doing a detail?
No, details are separate.
Okay.
Totally separate.
Details are separate, yeah.
I think that number, Tom, is representing an entire person. But that's okay because that's the way they do their budget. So I'm okay with that, but I understand what you're saying.
It isn't as bad as it shows.
It's an accounting thing.
As I see it.
It's an accounting thing. When you pay somebody overtime, if you're doing payroll and you have someone who gets 41 hours, you're going to pay him 41 hours of regular time and 0.5, or you're going to pay 1 hour of 0.5 time. So that's what it is. It's just an accounting thing, and we're going to skew up the whole thing when we start playing accounting here.
Yeah. It's a lot of breakdown.
One final one. What is out there from a technology point of view that can make the department operate more efficiently and at a lower cost?
RoboCop?
Things, probably items that are very expensive.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Very expensive
if you
items.
had the money to make an investment, you make the investment, and the savings over 3 years offsets the cost, the investment you made. What's out there?
Technological advances in computer software, things like that. The mobile data terminals have been great for the police officers in the cars. We have the top of the line mobile data terminals that the officer basically has an office in his car. Things like that. And with more advances, but they cost a lot of, things cost money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you said you're going to put money into efficiency.
Tasers are part of that. Things like that, tools to make the officer on the street, to streamline his job and to stay with the current.
Video cameras throughout the
Video
town?
cameras would be great. Video cameras would be great. They're very expensive, like I said. Throughout town,
Dash cams.
that's another issue. That's another issue that,
Well, I mean,
it could.
I mean, have you gotten together and said, okay, these are things we would spend our money on if we could put it into things that would make our lives.
At this time, I have to be honest with you, it's, what can we do today to...
No, keep the boat going.
Right. We're staying afloat,
But
and I
it's
think the
also,
water's
it's a
here.
very good time to borrow money. And potentially, if you could make a justification that said, over a period of, over a 3-4 year horizon,
Yeah.
this investment will pay for itself.
It's certainly things to
So
look
we ought to
into.
know what the heck that's all about.
Certainly worth looking into, of course.
Maybe we could get our own TV show, too. That would be cool. Then we get the jet skis back, and they can follow us around. I'd like to thank you very much. Oh, we got one more? Okay.
One more question. On the educational incentive, that doesn't account for the sending someone to the academy. What's that?
The educational incentive? That's the Quinn bill.
Yeah.
It's not. Please don't use that term, because that's not what it is. It's actually, that term is dead. The state nixed that term. What this is when they go on and get education as they go along, this is part of that. It's a contractual issue at this point, so that's what it is. It's just part of their pay based on the amount of education they've gone on to get after they become a police officer.
Right.
That's all.
But to answer your question, it doesn't affect the
It doesn't help it.
right, no.
Actually, I can explain it to you later, Marilyn, but kind of simplistically, we want more educated police officers. Back when this came out, probably, I think it was the 1970s, I have my flyer here, I don't remember all of it, but when it came out, there were civil rights issues, there were a lot of technical legal issues that police officers were making arrests, but they were kind of, things were slipping through the cracks, and there was lack of sensitivity. So they felt that we should give some incentive if they get college credits and do further studies, and so every degree that they get, for the associates, for the bachelors and beyond, they get compensated more. One of the things that we looked at, but it would take more than we can do at the moment, is to actually just make those requirements of the position, because now, in 2014, people are much more likely to have some kind of degree, have already gone to college, so it could just be part of the, rather than have it a separate line item to go through this complicated formula, it could just be part of what you're required to do. But that's the way it was set up in the town, that's how the town voted for it, so that's how we show it on the books. Anybody else?
Nice to have a local police chief.
I would like to thank you for a honest, open presentation, for not making us feel guilty, for trying to work with you to get the most practical budget that we can. And I just want to throw something out there for discussion purposes, and this comes maybe dangerously close to day, but it's part of the bigger picture, and I had warned Larry to warn Derek that this is something that I'm going to be asking town-wide. And it comes a little bit into pushback. It's much more relevant when we look at the schools and the school budgets and what they're mandated to do. We are being told as a community that we have to do a lot of things. We have to do it in the sewer department, we have to do it in the schools, and we don't have the funds to do all the things that the federal government and the state thinks that we have to do. And then we have an obligation to our citizens for what we have to do to provide services. So it's not our job on the Finance Committee to decide that. That's the Board of Selectmen who've now left and missed my beautiful little speech here. But I want to start that dialogue. So I just want to get a sense from you. Will you get 52,000 calls? What is your obligation legally? Is that, I'm not sure that's the right term, but what are you mandated to do, aside from giving us the best service? And we do honestly and sincerely appreciate the service that you give. But what are areas that do we have to respond to dead animals on the side of the road? Or is that something we can do a little bit of pushback and say to the college, gee, I'm sorry, we no longer have someone that can handle that?
We can do that, and we have done that.
Okay.
And, but the people of Wareham expect a service for their tax dollar, and
And they're going to take it out on you, and that's not
And
where
we-
it should be. It should be coming
Right.
back at this level, because we're going to be making decisions, not just us, town meeting's going to be making those decisions. But at some point, people are going to have to make those decisions and understand what those costs are. So if we're not going to fund your budget fully that you need to get, people need to understand that. And that's the word I want to get out there, because I think for many years, people have been hearing, we have no money, we have no money, and they've still been getting the services. And they haven't felt, I don't want to say feel pain, but that's not right, but they haven't seen really a whole lot of loss. And at some point, I would rather see us sacrifice other areas to get those new patrolmen out there so the long-term picture improves. We may have to hurt for a little bit, but people need to know that and be aware of that and make those decisions. We just can't keep spending the way we used to.
And I think that comes with a cooperative, educated effort between the citizens and all boards. It has to be a cooperative and educated decision. And if you're not educated in the fact that of our numbers and what we have to deal with, then only your thing matters, and it's not going to work that way. So I totally agree with you.
So are there anything, when you get a call, do you get a call from outside? Well, obviously, with the 911, we had to respond to Middleborough. That was something that beyond. What must you do? Are there any, what am I trying to get to, the state requirements, other programs that you feel are burdensome beyond what you would consider your community policing duties?
I'm not sure I understand what, we have liability. Every time we pick up that phone, it's a liability issue.
So maybe I'm thinking more of red tape and reporting. Do you have to report to, is there anybody above Derek and the Board of Selectmen who you have to report to for programs that you have to implement? You don't have to do so many
I don't think the police is necessarily the one on this one.
okay, that's fine. That's what I'm trying to get a handle on.
Yeah, I mean, they have to, and reporting, yes, they better have everything together, because you better believe how many lawsuits come through, and if we haven't properly documented, we're now paying out the funds. So they have a strong burden on everything to be, not only to be safe for themselves, for the public, but also then to document it and be professional. So there's, and the training, some of them are contractual. Some of them, I mean, we want to make sure that they are trained, if they're going to have tasers, that they have the taser training and such. So I think we'll hear from municipal maintenance as more of the mandates that are falling on their head.
And that was my expectation too, and I'd like to thank you again, and what I would like to say is really what a town needs to do, first of all, town government, the most important thing is to protect its citizens. And that's a priority, and you do it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just end by saying that please realize, Finance Committee, that my door is always open, my phone line is always open for you. If there are any operational questions, if you want to come in and talk about something, if there's something you need cleared up, you know, this, geez, I didn't ask him this, I wish, I wonder what happened with this, please feel free to come see me anytime. Thank you.
Just clear it through your chair first.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that. That's a great idea. We may get back to you with more questions as we have a chance to digest all of this.
Probably invite you back to one of our meetings before that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.